Good afternoon, YouTube. It's Tiffany again. I'm back with another SmutNut review. So last week we covered the first book in the Wicked Lover series, and I told you guys that I would be getting into this series in depth. So I'm back again with the second book for that series. It's gonna be Decadent. So hopefully you guys have read this book. If you haven't, then I would highly recommend you go out and read it. So let's just jump right into it. Decadent is the second book in the Wicked Lover series by Shayla Black. It also picks up kind of sort of in the same vein as Wicked Ties. So in Wicked Ties we met Deke, who is the partner of Jack Cole. As we learned last week, he and his lady got together in Wicked Ties. Now we're on to Decadent. So Decadent is a little bit different. And it starts off with our heroine. Her name is Kimber Edgington. And Kimber is in need of help. She has a very odd request. And she goes to Deke to find out if he can assist her. And she shows up at his house, and they haven't seen each other in quite a long time. In fact, it's been years. And when she shows up, she actually thinks she's at the wrong house because Deke doesn't answer the door. But this gorgeous man does. And that gorgeous man just happens to be Luke Traverson, who is Deke's cousin. And Luke is kind enough to entertain Kimber while she waits for Deke, who will be home in just a few moments. And they talk. And it's very sweet. It's very, simple. Until Deke shows up. And he's surprised, to say the least, to see Kimber and to decide that and wonder, what is she doing here? He hasn't spoken to her in years. And the last time he spoke to her, he actually wasn't very nice to her. She was underage. And he wanted, I don't want to say he wanted nothing to do with her, but he didn't want to get too close because she was underage. So she explains to him that she's there for a favor, and she figured he was the best person to ask for that favor. And then she drops the bomb on him of what it is, because he's very intrigued and very concerned. And she says, I want you to teach me how to have sex your way. And he's flabbergasted. Because his way is threesomes, aka menage. He doesn't have sex unless there are 3 people involved. And we get into why a little bit later into the book. Deke has some deep-seated issues that he hasn't been able to get over. So he's a little bit flabbergasted because he's pretty sure that Kimber is a virgin. Which she is. And she tells him, I am a virgin and I intend to stay that way, but I need to learn how to have sex your way, aka I need to learn how to have menages, or if I can handle menages, because I'm in love with a young man named Jesse. And Jesse is, I guess for all intents and purposes, in this book universe, Jesse would be the equivalent of like Justin Timberlake. He's hot, he's a pop star, he's awesome. And she had the opportunity to spend a summer with Jesse when her father, who is in the personal protection industry as well, was basically watching out for him. So her and Jesse have a childhood love affair that she feels has come to the point where it's blossomed. And she's heard all about, how his lifestyle is, and she wants to prove to him that she can handle it and they can take their little puppy love to the next step. And Deke thinks she's insane. And he's like, no, I'm not going to help you. I don't want any parts of this, and you shouldn't want any parts of it either. So take your tail home. But she kind of backs him into a corner, and he comes up with a plan to scare her, which is to give her a small taste right then and there in his kitchen, on his kitchen counter. And she's like, well, how are we going to do that? Who would we even have as the third person? Enter Luke, Deke's cousin. And she's very shocked. She's like, you guys are cousins and you have sex together with women. And he's like, yeah. And neither one of them, let's just be clear, neither one of them are gay. They're all man. But they like the idea of sleeping with the same woman, which is cool. It's better than cool, in my opinion. It's way better than cool. But they give her a small taste, and Deke kind of makes it where she runs away because he's kind of a dick to her. So she leaves, feeling a little rejected, but she gets it. He didn't want to help her, and he wanted to scare her away, but she's not scared off that easily. Her brothers are in the military, and her father was in the military. She's kind of tough, and she's strong, and she's like, look, I can handle this. So she goes looking in other places with other guys that she's heard of, and being that a lot of different men have worked for her father and passed through, she knows at least a good handful that would be able to assist her, and they would have no qualms about it. Deke, on the other hand, knows that they will happily assist her and screw her little brains out. And Luke, who has warm, happy dreams in his eyes, he wants a happily ever after with his cousin, himself, and whatever perfect woman is going to be able to fit into their mix. Deke doesn't believe that that's ever going to happen, and Luke immediately sets his eyes on Kimber and thinks she is the one. So he sends Deke to go get her, and Deke, of course, brings her back home, and they agree that for 2 weeks she will stay with them. They will teach her everything they need to know, or she needs to know about Minaj, minus physically taking her virginity. And she agrees to this. So she comes and she stays with them, and immediately they get to work training. But Deke is very he's very distant, and he lets her know, look, I'm not here to be your friend. I don't even really want to talk to you unless we're in the bedroom, and then we can do whatever you want. I'm not gonna have sex with you, period. We will not be having intercourse. And when things get hot and you beg for it, remember that I had this conversation with you. And things kind of go in that vein until, of course, it comes to a breaking point, which is when they want to teach her everything, and she begs, and Deke kind of rejects her. And it sucks, and she's like, well, okay, I'm going to Jesse now. I think I've learned everything I need to learn. So she leaves a little early and she goes to Jesse. And during that time, while she is with Jesse, nothing happens. She figures it out. She doesn't belong with Jesse because she's in love with Deke. And she's trying to wrap her head around that and extricate herself from the situation with Luke that feels uncomfortable now. They're not in love. They're not going to be together. She doesn't even have a desire to be with him like that. And the truth is, Jesse doesn't have a desire to be with her like that either. Jesse thinks that she's perfect, and she's this like pristine thing that he can hold in his hands, and if he holds on to it in its pristine shape long enough, it will make him clean. So he doesn't want her to enter into their whole menage world. He wants her to stay just as she is so that he can glean some of her goodness and he can clean himself up because he feels he's dirty. And so nothing happens. They share like 1 or 2 kisses, and it's not really what she envisions. And in her head, she's going to leave him, except before she can tell him that she's going to leave him, he announces to the world that they're engaged, which is insane to her. She's like, we're not engaged. We're not getting married. There's nothing of the sort. And he's trying to convince her, except he messes up, and she's like, look, this isn't going to work. And I don't think that anyone here wants me to change you. He's got an entourage, and his entourage is huge, and it's full of managers and bandmates and people who want him to stay exactly in that, hedonistic lifestyle. And so there have been more than one person who made her feel uncomfortable being there. And she's not even sure that she wants to engage in this menage with him because she's accustomed to 2 men adoring her. Because during her training with Luke and Deke, yeah, they showed her the ropes of menage, but they were basically at her beck and call. They adored her, and they made her feel wonderful and loved and safe and kind. And basically, in Jesse's world, these guys are just after some ass, and nobody is kissing her and telling her she's beautiful. Nobody's taking their time. She knows they're not going to do this, and so she's not really up for it. And she decides to leave and goes in search of Jesse, only to find Jesse up to his old tricks. He is balls deep in some groupie's ass. I'm just going to be honest, because that's how it worked out in the book. He's balls deep in some groupie's ass, chugging back some liquor. And she's just flabbergasted, but she's like, you know what, it's okay, because I was leaving anyway. And she leaves and she goes to her dad's house because she can't go back to Deke and Luke. And while she's at her dad's house, the world is banging on her door, because according to them, she's marrying one of the world's biggest pop stars. But she's like, no. She releases a statement and says that they're not getting married, and that's not the truth. And then she calls Luke, and she's really concerned because she wants to talk to Deke, and she knows she's in love with him, but he's pushing her away. In the process of her having a conversation with Deke, her house blows up, and this is when things get real, because now they have to figure out what's happening. Is someone trying to hurt her dad? Her dad is in the personal protection industry, and so it could be that someone is just after him and they're trying to, hurt him for whatever reason. Or it could be that someone's after her. Deke and Luke come rushing to her side to make sure that she's protected. There's a very awkward scene between Deke, Luke, her, and one of her older brothers, where they basically, almost come to blows about, what are you doing with my sister? And, I know how you guys are, so what the fuck is going on? But she handles it well. After that, they take her away. Deke and Luke take her away to try and protect her. And Luke and Kimber come up with the idea of how she can lose her virginity. And Deke has to be the one to do it. And Deke has to be the one to open his heart. And Luke is really set on them being all together. And Kimber is not really, not that she doesn't love Luke, because Luke is a great guy. He's really good looking and a master in the sack. But he's not who she loves. So, hoping that things will... She's hoping that Deke comes around. And he does. Deke does come around, and they actually have this beautiful, tender moment, and she loses her virginity to Deke. It's lovely. It's beautiful. And Luke is there, but it starts to kind of unravel. Things start happening. She thinks she's pregnant, and then there's a secret that Luke is holding on to that makes things very difficult. I'm not going to ruin the ending and tell you guys everything, but it's really a killer book. It has a lot of information, a lot of detail. I love the writing. As I said, I'm a huge Shayla Black fan. I love all of her books, and I'm reading 3 series by her right now, so I'm a huge fan of hers in general. This one just happens to be my favorite series by her, and it tells a great story. And I know that in my reviews I kind of get a little flabbergasted and I kind of get a little off track, but I will say this: these books, they flow so well, and they're well written, they're compelling, they're sexy, they're pretty awesome. And I don't want to ruin the end of Decadent for you, because I don't want to tell you, does she end up with Luke and Deke? Does she eventually fall in love with Luke and they all live happily ever after? Or does she just end up with her and Deke? Like, do they figure out a way to make it work for the two of them? As I said, Deke has some deep-seated concerns of his own. He has some issues that he has to get over, and Luke has a little secret that needs to come out. So at the end of the day, I won't ruin the ending. I would say if you've read the book, then you already know how it ends. Amazing. And if you haven't, you will be very happy. I always recommend go out and pick it up for yourself. Get a copy of your own, or get the ebook if you got a Kindle. It's well worth it. On my Smutometer, the SmutNometer, if you will, I'm going to go ahead and give Decadent at least an 8. It's pretty racy. At the very beginning, I mean, I think it's within like the first 2 chapters, we're getting into some pretty racy stuff. Deke and Luke have Kimber on their kitchen counter in a very compromising position for a virgin. And it only gets more, let's call it interesting from there. So I definitely am all for this book. I am all for Shayla Black Reads. The next book that we will be reviewing is going to be, of course, in this series. It's going to be Delicious. So I would recommend, if you have not read Delicious, if you haven't read Decadent, if you haven't read the Wicked Lovers series in general, pick it up. I promise you will not be disappointed. This book, this series is amazing. As I said, to any studio, any HBO, Cinemax, Stars, Showtime, option this series. It would make an amazing TV show. Like, pretty amazing. It's basically a bunch of really hot, really great adrenaline junkie males who find the women they love and figure out how to open up their hearts. And I am all for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, have a great one. And we will be back next week with Delicious.